Not in my wildest dreams I would have thought I could make a film about and with Pope Francis. It was the other way around. One day I got a letter from the Vatican. Would you be willing and interested in talking to us? So, in a strange way, they offered it to me and they asked me, and you don't say no to the Pope. One of the key elements that interested me from the beginning, and that was part of my very first concept, was that Pope Francis had chosen that name of Francesco. And the first Pope ever in the history to choose that very loaded name. In the history of Christianity, Francesco was a revolutionary. Saint Francis was a great reformer and revolutionary. No other Pope before, I think, dared to take on the name. So making a film about Pope Francis meant also to have to refer to Saint Francis. The collaboration with the Vatican was fabulous. They let us shoot without interfering. They watched several steps of the cut. And we had 4 long opportunities to ask questions to Pope Francis, and had access to an incredible archive, because ever since he's in office, camera teams, at least a camera team of 2 people, always accompanies him on all his journeys, and we had exclusive privilege to have access to that. In the original concept I wrote for this film, I realized that a conventional interview wouldn't be good enough. And I really felt like the Pope should be addressing everybody who sees this film, like look people in the eye. And there is a system that allows you to do so. It is a camera system called Interrotron, and whereby the Pope could look directly into the camera, because he doesn't see the lens, because that is not comfortable to talking to a lens. In front of the lens, he saw me, my face, and my eyes were just at the level of the lens. And so he was talking to me, looking at me, talking to me. But as we shot through that semi-transparent screen, for the viewer, it is like he's completely looking at them. Going through the material, and after we've started shooting the interviews, and after we felt we got to know him more and more, all through all the footage all over the world, in those prisons, in the refugee camps, in front of the United Nations, the US Congress. He spoke in so many places, and more I felt, here's a man in front of us who stands for what he says. So out of a sudden, that title came to my mind, and I suggested it to the producers and to the Vatican, a man of his word. And that was in the middle of the editing process, and everybody liked it, and it then became the title of the film. It's not easy in today's world to really live what you preach and to really stand by everything you say. And actually, we've gotten used to more and more to the fact that most people who speak for everybody, which are usually politicians, do not stand for what they preach. And I think that's also the relevance of a film, that we have a man in front of us who is honest, who is dedicated to the common good, who is dedicated to represent not just Christians or Catholics, but humanity, and who lives what he says. I have the highest esteem for that attitude. The initial invitation was to make a film on his papacy, on Pope Francis, so to speak. And after a lot of reflection, I realized that this unique chance and this access we're going to have to him shouldn't lead to a biographical film. I felt the chance we had was to let him speak to the audience, and to let this be a film on his concerns and on his issues, and let him speak instead of making a film about his roots, where he came from, a biographical film. I wasn't so much interested. I thought the biography of his ideas. That's what I was after. And so we eventually, in my first concept, said, I think it'd be better if it be a film with him than about him. I think it's very characteristic for his papacy and for his openness to all people, not just Christians. He's incredibly open to all the other religions. He's open to humanity. He's open to the problems of our planet. So that is definitely a quite unique thing about Pope Francis. And I don't think a film like this seriously could have been considered by the Vatican on any previous pope. The Pope's concern touched many issues: ecological concerns, climate control, injustice, yes, very much so, social imbalance, the problem of poverty on our planet, the rising problem of migration, refugees. But all of these problems together, I felt more and more came to one single issue, which was the common good. That there was somebody who represented the idea of a common good. From the very beginning, we thought this is not going to be a film for Catholics. This is not even going to be a film for Christians. This is going to be a film for everybody on the planet, because it deals with everybody and it helps everybody, and it is about everybody's concerns. And so, as I was given this amazing freedom and encouraged also by Don Dario and the Vatican to not specifically make it for believers, but for everybody, I went all the way and tried to make it a film that even atheists and people of any religion can watch and profit from. Everybody who's seen it so far walks away deeply moved, and moved by the honesty of the Pope's answers and by the honesty of his approach. So, and even people who are really not believers into anything. I've seen pretty tough grown-up men with tears in their eyes. So I think people walk away from it with a sense of hope and a sense of longing for a different world. I think it's even almost more important for people who are not Christian to see this film, because I think the film helps to do away with some prejudices or some misunderstandings. And the Pope's openness and his open arms for everybody, and his attitude of never be proselytizing or preaching, I think will even touch people who would rather say, well, include me out. If the film is going to have an effect at the world at large, as you say, I don't know, you can't really expect that from a film. But I think the Pope as a person does have an effect at the world at large. And as he is so directly approaching you, I think the film might have a positive effect on many people.